Well, hello again, folks. I'm glad you're here. Um, Last time I was talking about kind of wishing that we could integrate our understanding of things a bit better so that all of us can tolerate people's religious faith and still be educated and aware enough about science, engineering, and technology to use it wisely. Because putting our heads in the sand won't help. The other thing is, if you're going to make faith-based arguments, which is what most apologetics is, if not all of it, and I'm no expert, but you have to be all in on the faith, right? And then depending on how you're spending your attention, who you're listening to, you will absorb certain kinds of information, and this will inevitably become a worldview that you'll stick to. And thank the good Lord for cognitive dissonance. If somebody tells you that evolution is nonsense, or, science is a religion or something like that, you'll just believe them offhand because you don't really want to think about it, and maybe you don't have time to really think about it, whether or not that's true or not. If you're well-read, like many scholars are, and theologians and religious apologists, in your religion, you've spent hours and hours learning, and you understand the conflict between various denominations in your religion, and you have chosen a side, maybe, or maybe you just inherited it from your parents, the nature-nurture thing, your environment, your culture, whatever. Science and engineering and technology doesn't have to be a threat to spirituality or meaning-making or creativity or anything else. I think, whatever you want to call it, the good books and mythology and so on are there for a reason. Human beings need this. We need the story, and we need to be at the center of the story because we're conscious, complex creatures with language, and we're deeply enmeshed in our communities. And well, later I'll talk about game theory as a tool for critical thinking, but right now, we want to signal to our people that we're committed, that we have skin in the game, that we will practice the kind of virtues that are required to be good standing member of the community, so on and so forth. So it's important. And whether you're John Vervaeke or some other person who's trying to figure out, what the next religion's going to be, I don't think that's necessarily necessary because the old-time religions are perfectly profound and perfectly good for what they do. And of course, you can go into scripture and you can say the Bible promotes slavery. Well, put it in its historical context. And also, I would say that it's those people back then interpreting the rules. I don't think anybody says, God told me to do it. There are commandments and so on in religions. The hadith or whatever. But I think most people can understand the context of that and wouldn't necessarily want to go back to the antebellum South and chattel slavery and all the cruelty that exists there. But the tragedy is today we have human trafficking. And we have slavery still in 2023, so there's work to be done. You can call that work progressivism if you want. But perhaps, deep down in the good book somewhere, there's some ethics and some moral reflections that require us to decide that owning a person is wrong. And also, ethics and moral sentiments can be found everywhere. And they are in the law if you look at the law, whether it's common law or a statutory law or whatever. We're always trying to come up with things that are fair and make sense and ease suffering and so on, and make business easier to conduct, to level up the inherent trust in a society, in a culture. I think on a socioeconomic level, we have a lot of work to do, but I'll save that for another video when I reflect upon the Great Simplification podcast with the host Nate Hagens, and also Vaclav Smil that I've read a lot about, but that's another story, the energy perspective and where we go from here. But can we use science, engineering, and technology to help us with the challenges that we have today? And some of those are existential challenges. You may or may not believe that, but whatever. And moving forward, can we use artificial intelligence as a tool for creativity, for business, for monitoring things, for helping us with the environment, helping us with science, understanding soil biology or ocean ecology or whatever is important to us? We're not going to make a replicator anytime soon to get our steak and our watermelon. So we're going to have to figure out how to feed billions of people, unless we go the route of ignoring things until tens of hundreds of millions, billions of people die. And I don't think anybody wants to see that. And I understand that it's hard to do the Forrest Landry thing and look forward thousands of years, wondering, what's going to happen in the thousands of, what do we do to make the world, human culture around for 1,000 years? I think of things as a kind of having a global culture that's a lattice work, a framework for basic things that promote health across ecosystems and in terms of social health, mental health, physical health, for plants and animals and bugs, everything required, all the natural services required to ensure that we have life on Earth and not just kill it because we want stuff. So maybe we can all agree across cultures on certain things, and that could be a super culture that helps us manage things, and we can use our science, engineering, and technology tools to help us with that. And there can be equity there, equality. We can have the global South and the global North in on it, and we can use the scientific method to decide what those things should be. Because if you ask God, faith-based thing, then you're going to have a whole bunch of people around the world denying the data and the results of the experiments and the rationale and all this kind of thing, because they just want to fray the pages of ancient books and find all the answers there. Now it's understanding. A lot of us just want to know the truth. Somebody's got to tell me the truth so I can get up in the morning, go about my business, and know what to do and what not to do, who to hate and who to love, and so on. But that's really not going to work, because we do live in modernity, whether we like it or not. And all the genies are out of the bottle, as I've said 1,000,000 times. And we can't put them back in the bottle unless billions of us die. So we're going to have to come to terms. And one of the reasons that I do these videos is I'm hoping people who are like me, pretty stupid, not geniuses, not that well educated, can become inspired to be curious enough to look into things with an open mind and find that attractive and exciting and fun, and learn to communicate with one another so that we can have some sense of coherence and common cause in the world. So we don't have these stupid wars and we don't always vote for psychopaths. The great game has an end. Nothing lasts forever, and we live in a finite planet with finite resources. I would like to see all of these stupid, psychopathic, foolish leaders go on an extended vacation to Mars with Elon Musk and leave us loving, curious people who honestly, earnestly want to know how things work and keep the faith, stay behind to kind of sort things out together. I'm not going to go into the political forms, collectivism, individualism, neoliberal, all that stuff. I think a lot of it has to just go and be rethought. And there's lots of wisdom in old traditions. Now, it must be a fallacious argument to say that because it's an older tradition and it was around for thousands of years, it must be better. The Curtis Yarvin argument for, monarchy, one of his arguments, one of the bullet points, one of the pages on his deck. But that's kind of fallacious, isn't it? I mean, I have to look it up, which suite of logical fallacies that falls into. But there is wisdom there, and these things did work for good reasons. And there are things that we can take from the past and say, maybe those were more sustainable, Or fast fashion is the way we want to go, and consumerism until things really break badly. And I'm talking about breaking bad, which means billions of people die, not just your average coke heads and meth heads. You point your finger at people and say they're evil or they're wrong. When did they become evil and why? How were they pushed into a situation where they became so destructive, so violent towards themselves, their own heart and soul, and violent towards others, destructive on a planetary scale? Not just killing people, murdering people, but being part of a system that's an omnicidal heat engine that is actually very destructive when you look into it in detail. So we're going to need to use artificial intelligence, so we're going to need to use it wisely. Now, all these uncontrolled experiments like social media and whatnot, we didn't do too well with them. And that's because our culture is profits first, and we're into financialization and capital on capital returns, and we're not into meaningful work and being part of a community. That Maggie Thatcher crap is crap. But these ideologies are performative sometimes. They're just done to get people to vote for people or to back people so that they can continue having their exciting, wonderful careers or getting obscenely rich. This whole thing between Hollywood writers and executives, they make $200 million a year, and the writers, are worried because they're getting squeezed, as they always are. And that's not right. It's not fair. Someday we're going to have to break out of this thing, but who knows when that'll be. So I'm a big fan of philosophy, religion, mythology, literature, science fiction, fantasy, nonfiction books, as you know, and I'm not going to give any of it up. I actually want to have sustainable agriculture that includes lamb and beef and so on. There are good arguments for being vegan or whatever, but I think it's a matter of redirecting our focus and attention on other things. So my dream is that we live in these small communities like I live in Portugal, and we have our crafts, our arts, our creative stuff, and we have our digital businesses, which is all about intellectual growth and spiritual growth and entertainment, things like that. And we have normal jobs, to maintain infrastructure and to manufacture things, small manufacturing companies that are more sustainable, that have smaller supply chains that don't have to be so global, and that we have our traditions, our parties, our festivals, our religious services, whatever makes us feel like we're living meaningful lives with one another in community with people that we love.
But, until everybody thinks like me, it's just not going to work. There's going to be hell on earth. And so you got to proselytize.
I'm preaching about the one God. Like a man's church to the man's church of Pentecost, Pentecost is gonna do for the one Lord. Mississippi, where that Jackson is. Remember, the Lord done for us. Speak in tongues, worship of God. You need the Holy Ghost, but feeling the Holy Ghost is. That means you're speaking in tongues. He wants the money, what you give him. The red. It's the Lord as the word. He was on Pentecost of Anita's, Mississippi. The Lord is here tonight. And his name is Jesus. There's only one God. And then he's going to praise out his tears and just worship God. And then he's going to worship God. But the Lord is going to do it. That means God has to do it. And then Jesus has to do it. And then God is going to do it. And then Jesus. Whoa! I love to preach something tonight.
So I don't think that's too bad a thing. And so, I'm not going to criticize somebody if they've spent their whole life, wanting to be an entertainer and studying, the Orthodox Church and whatnot. Or somebody who's just not that curious or educated or well-read, who just longs for a simple, meaningful family life. And I'm not going to get too angry anymore at all these smartasses who think they're so much better than everybody else and cynically snicker and point fingers and wish violence upon people who are more vulnerable than they are, less fortunate, and so on. We got to get over that stuff, but, that's my opinion. Who cares? I'm nobody. The only way you can become an influencer is to, like a pickup artist, convince people that you know the truth, that you understand the best products or something like that. And then assert yourself and be charming and cool, and then sell your soul to the advertisers so that you can make money and then signal more how beautiful and perfect you are and smart and intelligent. Ben Shapiro can just go on his little channel and say he's the smartest man in the world. And so can Andrew Tate. And there's just not. There are so many people that are smarter, but these people are more nuanced. They're more well-read. They're more down to earth. And they're not as attractive. They're not as stimulating. The idea is to be a pickup artist, to get attention, be hyper-stimulated, all that kind of stuff. Dopamine hijack, whatever. You know the drill. and that's exciting and so on. It's harder work to slow down and try to understand something carefully and earnestly, with an open mind. And obviously, if you're paid to fight for a side, whether you're a soldier or an ideologue or a politician or a lobbyist or a lawyer, that's your job. That's what you do. And hopefully you do it well. They have a position, they have faith or whatever, and there's cognitive dissonance. Like, is science good or bad? What science is good? What science is bad? What if I'm a creationist? Can I imagine the universe being created? Billions of years ago, and evolution being part of God's plan, or do I have to go to the Bible and say that, if it doesn't fit into the thousands of years ago interpretation, am I a heretic? Do I get booted out of the church? I mean, it's tough, and I understand why people can't do that. And then they have to shoehorn their belief into their faith. I mean, their understanding of science into their faith, and it's really, really difficult to do that. So then they decide, I'm an atheist or I'm a theist. I'm either a Catholic or I'm not. And you have to be all in if you're going to identify as a Catholic or a Muslim of some sort, Sunni or Shia or whatever. Especially the Abrahamic religions, some faiths are more nebulous, more forgiving. But anyway, so you have to be against pantheists and against this and that and the other thing. Because the one truth faith, as you know it, because the proper one truth faith has all the truth in it, all the truth you're going to need, which I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if I'm damned because I don't adhere to the Greek Orthodox Church or something, the Russian Orthodox Church, or the whole, the Roman Catholic thing. Anyway, so let's just sort this out, shall we? Okay, the scientific method. What is it? So one, the scientific method is a systemic approach scientists use to acquire knowledge and understand the natural world. While there might be slight variations in its application depending on the specific field of science, the consensus on the scientific method includes the following steps. Now, I used ChatGPT because I didn't want to spend a whole bunch of time writing this up and Googling things and pulling quotes out of, different stuff. I know what it is. I could tell you in my own words, but it wouldn't be as good. And this is a good tool. So I edited it for clarity, and now I'm presenting it to you. And if you already know all of this stuff, you don't have to listen anymore. But it all ties together because there's a couple other things in here about modernity and AI. So, number one, okay, science. Observation. The process starts with observing a phenomenon or gathering relevant data from previous studies. Now, people have been doing this since forever, Homo sapiens, which is why we have, flint arrowheads and knives and fire, all the things, the technologies, including speech, that came after we were like really, ancient cave people. And if you believe we were created 6,000 years ago, well, that's fine. Nothing I can do about it. I'm just trying to share what this is because we're all surrounded by science, engineering, and technology. You can't get away from it. Whether you want to or not, I mean, you're going online to read the Bible. So what's that all about? Satanic? I don't know. I'm not trying to be facetious. It's just, So 2, question. Based on the observation, scientists formulate a specific and testable question to explain the observed phenomenon. So, you can go back to ancient texts in Greece and so on that were saved by people in Syria way back when, to understand that people observed nature and came up with ideas about it. Then they'd come up with a hypothesis. This is 3. A hypothesis is a proposed explanation or prediction for the observed phenomenon. It is a testable statement that proves something through experimentation. So you test and you retest. You have to replicate the experiment. People do that. They say, wow, this thing really works. And then you get computer chips and digital cameras and whatnot. You may not like CERN. You may not want to know anything about AMOC, the circulation in the ocean or atmospheric rivers, the physics of it, chaos theory, whatever. You don't have to get that deep. You can just understand what's going on when people are working on these questions and problems and trying to find out how nature works. They're not trying to ruin your day. Most scientists are trying to make things better, even if there are second and third order effects and externalities that can often screw things up. So Oppenheimer, we got a problem with the nukes, but knowledge of nukes in and of itself is no worse than the Bible. It's how we use it. 4, experimentation. Scientists do not design and conduct experiments to test the hypothesis. They carefully control variables to ensure the results are reliable and meaningful. And again, you're talking about p-values and statistics and designs of experiments and so on. It's complex. There can be a lot of bad science and bad medicine. But a lot of it is really good. And you have to train yourself. You have to learn how to understand, when it's transparent, when it's pre-published, when people come in and criticize these papers and these experiments. There's a whole community of people out there. Now, there's motivated reasoning, which I'll talk to you about when I talk about game theory. But a lot of times people are motivated by different kinds of incentives, especially financial and career incentives, that make them cherry pick and design and present their findings in bad ways. And usually they're found out eventually. And things are corrected. Science is self-correcting. So data collection. Scientists collect and analyze data to conclude the hypotheses during the experiment. Analysis, the data is analyzed to determine whether the results support or refute the hypothesis. And of course, there's peer review. So lots of people are looking at this data and looking at your interpretation, just like there would be councils of people fraying the Bible's pages to find out what the scriptures mean and deciding on a consensus of meaning, the filioque or the Trinity, right? Resurrection, what's it mean, and so on and so forth. Was Jesus a physical person, a creature, or was he, just like a ghost? They argue about this stuff. So peer review is like that. A lot of scientists are arguing about whether or not you're right or not. And then 7, conclusion. Based on the data analysis, scientists conclude the hypothesis, or hypotheses, depending. If the data supports the hypothesis, it can become a scientific theory or law. But if it is not supported, it may be revised or discarded. Now, there's a lot of things today about the Big Bang and basic Newtonian physics and other earlier physics, Einstein, of course, that are looking like they need to be revised now. So a law, a theory that's a law, quote unquote, can be refined and updated. You can update your prior beliefs and prior understandings of things. I'm not going to go into probability now, but based on new evidence. And we get new evidence through tools. We invent tools, amazing tools that help us get more information, more knowledge, like the CERN collider, the Large Hadron Collider. LHC, it's a big deal, and we learn a lot, but, telescopes, space telescopes, and so on. Also just mathematics and computing power, brute force and computer chips, and eventually quantum computing, and so on. We're going to get better and better at figuring things out, and some of our theories will have to be revised. Does that mean that you don't know the absolute truth of your faith? No, you can still have faith and understand that down here in our physical form, in the physical world, we're learning stuff. And it's not, I don't think that's heretical. I don't think that's a sin.
There are very remarkable mysteries about the fact that we're able to do so many more things than apparently animals can do, and other questions like that. But those are mysteries I want to investigate without knowing the answer to them. And so altogether, I can't believe the special stories that have been made up about our relationship to the universe at large, because they seem to be too simple, too connected, too local, too provincial. The earth became...
I can't find it in the Bible that it's a sin, or in any other good book across any culture. But some people interpret that because they have power they don't want to give up. And a lot of religion is just a racket. Prosperity gospel bullshit. Give me more money and you'll be fine. Okay, icons are great. I have some icons I bought in Greece. But, is it just a racket to sell something so the church can keep going? I don't think so. I'm not that cynical. But, it is a business. And the Vatican, don't get me started on that. I don't know why they have to be so special, but there's corruption in there. But I'm not criticizing you if you're Catholic. I was raised Catholic. Okay, so 8, replication. To strengthen the reliability of the findings, other researchers replicate the experiment to verify the results independently. And they have blinded studies and double-blinded and triple-blinded, so you can't cheat. The scientific method is iterative, which involves a continuous cycle of refining and expanding knowledge based on new evidence and insights. And if we get our values sorted out, our virtues and our values, we'll be able to use this suite of powerful tools to make things better and better for people and for life on Earth. If it's all about profit and greed, then it's going to kill us all. So there you go. Evil and good. Good and bad, whatever. Ethics, morals. So number 2 is like, the next thing I want to talk about is modernity, because people have a problem with modernity, and I made a video about that. But anyway, I just wanted to reiterate the consensus on it, because we're not going back unless we die. So the consensus meaning of modernity refers to the historical and cultural period characterized by significant changes in society's social, economic, political, and technological aspects. It is a departure from traditional practices and a shift towards more progressive and innovative ways of thinking and living. And this has been going on for a long, long time, arguably before the Age of Wonder, before the 13th century. But anyway, going back to ancient Greece, for God's sake. But anyway, progressivism, we can define that in different ways from different contexts and points of view, and I recognize that. If it bothers you, it bothers you. But anyway, we're changing, we're growing, but some things stay the same. There is a core reality. I'm not saying it's a Platonic form or something like that, but I think there is an essence to things. I don't know if I can know it or describe it, but anyway, science kind of tries in a way, but in a not exactly that way. So, yeah, key characteristics of modernity include, and this is important to know because it has its externalities and its negative effects. Industrialization, the rise of industries and urbanization with a shift from agrarian economies to industrial economies. And I kind of feel like we should all serve on the land a little bit, even though we're modern, because it would make us appreciate nature more and understand where we get our life from. Secularization, a decrease in the influence of religion on public and private life with an increase in the importance of reason and science. Now, I can understand why this bothers people and why there is a thing we call scientism, where people exaggerate the importance of science and think it's the be-all and end-all. It's not. It's an aspect of it's one of our human endeavors, and it's a pretty amazing suite of tools and processes and practices, but it's not the be-all and end-all. There's all kinds of mysterious stuff in here going on and in society. Individualism, a focus on the individual's rights, freedoms, and autonomy over collective values. Atlas shrugged. Radical libertarianism, freedom, and democracy. All these ideological things that you can easily rationalize and come up with good reasons for, but actually miss the mark because they don't understand the complex interrelationships between lots of different systems that make up our world, not just human culture, but the whole universe. So, rationalization or rationalism, but the practice of rationalization, the application of reason and systemic approaches to various aspects of life, leading to increased efficiency and standardization. And that can bother people, I get it. But what religion doesn't use rationalization to make their arguments? Globalization, increased interconnectedness and interdependence between countries and cultures through trade, communication, and travel. Of course, this, at the base of all of this, is energy. And we're talking fossil fuels, fossil carbon energy, which you can learn about by listening to, if you don't have time to read Vaclav Smil and other authors, you can listen to Nate Hagen's podcast, The Great Simplification, or Jim Rutt Show. And you'll learn a lot, and you'll meet a lot of interesting people who are experts at this stuff. And if you're open-minded, you can really figure out how energy is so important to all of this modernization, modernness. We wouldn't have it without oil. And I've traveled all over the world and taken it for granted. I'm a lucky guy, but that might change. We might not be able to do that in the future. Who knows? Technological advancements, rapid technological developments leading to innovations in communication, transportation, and medicine, among others. And I think we're going to have to rethink our transportation, obviously. I don't think cars and parking lots are necessarily good for us, but whatever. 3, using artificial intelligence tools to nudge society into a healthy, sustainable course of action. Okay, so I went through and edited this. I asked ChatGPT, right, which is a large language model, LLM, that is trained on all the data that we give it. And, the last little bit of this conversation, the next video, because this is getting too long, is going to be about our AI God. How do we design this thing that's going to nudge us into the future and improve our lives without killing us? I don't really think AI is that big of an existential threat now, but it could be in the future if we don't get things right and pay attention. It has to be a controlled experiment. We have to take it slow And if profits are the only thing that's motivating companies to roll this out, we're going to have problems. Trust me on that. But I don't know how to shift the economic system. But I know some good people who are looking into it. So artificial intelligence, AI, can significantly promote positive societal changes and guide humanity towards a sustainable future. Some ways AI tools can contribute to this include environmental monitoring. AI can monitor environmental conditions and analyze large data sets to identify trends and potential issues. This information can help make informed decisions for sustainable resource management and pollution control. Of course, it's not going to work with ideologues and psychopaths as leaders who don't give a shit about anything except money and their careers and their position and their social signaling and all that crap, their egos. So we got to get rid of those monkeys somehow. Got to. Energy optimization, very important. AI can optimize energy consumption by analyzing patterns, predicting demands, and managing energy distribution efficiently, leading to reduced waste and a more sustainable energy grid. I love all that, but there are a lot of things that I'll cover in another video of notes that, Javon's paradox and things like that. But, the more energy we have, the more we use, because we're all about GDP and exponential growth and financialization and all that stuff. So it's problematic. If we had free fusion energy right now, I still think we'd turn the Earth into a big ball of plastic that would melt. And long before the big ball of plastic was here, we'd have all died from asphyxiation from the poisonous fumes of our stupid, idiotic consumer culture that takes us away from each other, divorces us from each other, makes us bereft and abandoned and foolish. It's sad, man. It breaks my heart. Trust me, it really does. Because I want connection. And I want my YouTube channel. So, healthcare and well-being. AI-powered healthcare systems can assist in early disease detection, personalized treatment plans, and drug development, improving overall health outcomes and reducing the burden of healthcare resources. Yes, can do. Why not? But as long as healthcare is a curated big business with lots and lots of providers throughout the whole system, it's not going to work that way, because healthcare, especially in the United States, the UK is becoming that way too now, is just a big business. Lots of services, lots of shareholders. At the end of the day, it's not just the companies and their boards of directors that screw things up. It's the shareholders, because we're buying this stuff so we can get capital on capital returns, make money in our sleep, and supporting this whole shit show just from our investments. I'm not blaming anybody for investing and getting a return on their investment, because you worked hard for your money and you want to grow it, and you need money today to survive. You need a lot of it to live well and pay for all your stuff. But how much do you really need? We've got to start thinking about this stuff, because we don't have infinite resources to feed our infinite appetites. I'm sorry. So climate change prediction. AI can process complex climate data to predict extreme weather events, track climate change patterns, and help policymakers develop strategies to mitigate its impact. Well, we've had that for a long time, and it gets better and better every year. But politicians don't want to do anything about it, because they won't get the money to get reelected if they do, and they'll lose their pretty little careers where they can dress nice and smell good and hang out in really nice rooms with other polite people who were educated like them to be clerks in the great game from Yale and Oxford and whatever, INSEAD. And, I'm not against education. I got an education. But, when you're a trained stooge, sociopath, who really just doesn't want to look at the data and the science and have a science or evidence-based approach towards governing, then, what are you? You're just a money-grubbing hack. And some of them are really stupid too. They're so ignorant. They have so many areas in their minds where they just don't understand the domain well enough to even ask or learn from an expert, in order to make a good decision about something. Sustainable agriculture. You want to eat? I want to eat. AI applications can optimize agricultural practices, helping farmers use resources more efficiently, reduce waste, and promote sustainable farming techniques. Well, we all need that. But to do that, we have to understand the complex nature of soil biology, how everything is interdependent, all life forms are interdependent, and how they work. And even in terms of evolutionary biology and all this stuff. If we don't understand this stuff, we're never going to make those decisions to pull out the sustainability aspects and efficiencies and ways to create crops that are healthy, that don't wreck the soil and give people cancer and whatever. So, I'm not a anti GMO person or anything like that. I want to follow the evidence, and I want to understand the healthiest way to produce enough food for everybody. There's no excuse for anyone to starve to death today. America didn't want to stop the war because these idiots in Washington hate Russians for some reason. And so they encouraged it, they sat back, they pushed. That's my opinion. And now we have food crises worse than we had. It's just inexcusable in 2023 to play these stupid games. We need to cooperate with China and other countries. All of us across all nation states have to get busy figuring out how to work together. Because if we go on the way we're going, honestly, it's going to increase suffering and ill health across the world. We don't want that. Getting dumber and dumber every year because of all the noise and crap we pay attention to. Slow down, learn something. So transportation efficiency, blah, blah, blah. Electric vehicles, autonomous vehicles, reducing emissions and congestion and parking lots and accidents and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's got to be a better way to get around a city than have one person in a billion cars driving around on asphalt. And there is. I've been on electric trams since I was a kid in Amsterdam and in countries around the world, and managed quite well walking to the subway station. I enjoyed it. Waste management, okay, that's important. All these things, personalized education, obviously. ChatGPT, it's a great tool. What the hell? Social services, of course, more equitable, more inclusive, better informed. So all of this stuff is there, but obviously we have to pay close attention to how it's rolled out, how it's disseminated, how it's used, the ideological belief systems behind various companies. And, I don't know how you become an agent, someone who has some effect on how these things are done. But I do know that you can Where's my crew? PayPal me. I'll hire a crew. So anyway, so we're going to have to get control of this. Now, there's lots of people in the world that just don't want to know about anything. So they make long videos about how Darwinism is a religion. Nobody talks about Darwinism. That's 19th century. You talk about evolution and the theory of evolution, and you talk about all the new things and new lines of evidence like the human genome mapping, things like that, CRISPR-Cas9. But you know, we get more and more information about all this all the time, and it's pretty damn clear cut what evolution is. Now, natural selection, all that stuff, you can talk about the finer points of it. You know, the theory of gravity, E equals mc squared. You know, basic physics, obviously quantum mechanics, and, you know, looking at the Higgs boson, whatnot. I mean, some of this stuff is just inaccessible to the vast majority of us, me included, but we can understand that there are people that are working on this stuff and basically why it's important, how it's applicable to our world, how it's applied in our world. You know, your car is a computer now, whether you like it or not, trad dude or orthodox dude. And, you know, the stuff you're using on your YouTube channels wouldn't be around without all that satanic modernity and scientism and whatnot. So look, if you're going to be smartass, be disciplined, do the reading, or at least have an expert help you understand what the theory of evolution is before you go on and makes videos about it, mouthing off like you know everything because you've studied so much theology your whole life. I mean, none of us can be perfectly knowledgeable across all domains of knowledge in our world. It's not possible, folks. So be real, you know. And if you stumble upon people on the internet who pretend to know it all, they don't. You can listen to an intellectual influencer's opinion, and that's great, and you can learn a lot from that. But if you really want to understand something, especially systemic systems and things that are complex, it's better to listen to what the experts say and at least educate yourself in a superficial understanding of the domain, so that you know there's a difference between chemistry, period, and biology, where there's a lot of chemistry in biology, but they're separate things. And you can talk about, you know, brain science and at the same time, you know, CT scanners, and understand the difference. And history as practiced in different ways by different historians. Evidence-based things and faith-based things. And, you know, I am confused like everybody else about the overlapping magisteria, Stephen Jay Gould's thing. But, you know, things are mysterious, and no matter how hard we try, we're never going to know anything, really. I mean, it's we can do a lot of cool things here. We can make a lot of cool stuff, but we have a lot to learn. And the only way our species is going to learn anything is if we're around in 5,000 years. That'd be cool. I'm going to die. I could get cancer tomorrow and say bye-bye, adios, cheers, and go wherever I go. Once my memories are wiped out and rotted, my brain turns to literal mush, not like it is now, which is just, I blame it on COVID-19. But, so, I hope you'll think about that stuff, and I hope what I had to say is somehow just kind of nudges you into the curiosity sphere, less judgmental, less isolated. You know, dogma is a thing and it's an important thing, but just be humble. Humility is a virtue. And I'll talk about the AI God next time. Okay, Boolean T, out.
A lot of people don't know how we got the Bible at all. We Westerners got the Bible thanks to the Catholic Church. And they took over the books of the Old Testament, which even by the time of Christ had not been finally decided upon by the Jews. The Jews did not close the canon of the Old Testament until the year 100 AD, or thereabouts, at the Synod of Jamnia. And then they finally decided which were the canonical books of the Hebrew Scriptures, and embodied them in the Masoretic text, the earliest copy of which dates from the 10th century, early in the 10th century AD. The books to be included in the New Testament were not finally decided upon until the year 382 AD again, at the Synod of Rome under Pope Damasus. So it was the Church, the Catholic Church, that promulgated the Bible and said, we are giving you these scriptures on our authority and by the authority of the informal tradition that has existed among us from the beginning, inspired by the Holy Spirit. So you receive historically the Bible on the Church's say-so. And the Catholic Church insists, therefore, that the Church, collectively, speaking under the presumed guidance of the Holy Spirit, has the authority to interpret the Bible.